Okay. My sixth point I want to use to continue to show you why this September is going to have some very significant historic events, is the point I want to use to help support that stand is blood moons. Now, we've heard a lot about blood moons lately in the news sometimes, and it's been a popular message as of late. But there are a lot of people who've never seen and never heard of a blood moon. And what a blood moon is, it's a lunar eclipse. And all it is when the moon is pretty much positioned behind the earth and the sun's light goes through the earth's atmosphere, and the angle of the sun's light that's been bent through the atmosphere, the way it lands on the moon turns the moon red. So it looks like the moon is turned to blood. So, back in that time of Acts and Joel and Revelation and things of that nature, when they say they see the moon turn to blood, you have to understand the definitions or the language that they used back then is different from ours now. So when they say the moon turned to blood, you can pretty much envision, if you've ever seen one, you can see why they would say that. Because you see the moon, and all of a sudden it's like blood red. It's like a really, really red moon, and it's a sight to see if you've never seen one. So the writers talked about the moon turning to blood. So this is where the whole phrase blood moons come from. Now, what's significant or important about this is in Genesis 1:14, God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons, and for days and for years. Now, for me, for years, I've read that and really didn't get the significance of that, how important that was. He says it here, let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. Now, remember earlier I was talking about how, we have a Hebrew and we use the American language, but it's good to go back to the Hebrew to understand what these words actually meant. Because when you translate them over into our language, they can kind of vary a little bit, so you have to research. Well, here in Genesis 1:14, the word seasons, they don't mean summer, winter, spring, fall. It actually means, the word in Hebrew is actually moed. It means feast or divine appointment. So it says, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for feasts or divine appointments and for days and years. That's actually the correct reading of that. So when you go to see that, okay, the moon or the lights in the firmament are actually for feast or for divine appointments. Well, you're gonna have to understand, like, divine appointments means divine appointments. I mean, how do I break that down? It means a divine appointment or a visit from God. I mean, think about the word divine. God is divine. Now, appointment, when you make an appointment to a doctor, means you have to go to the doctor, or you have an appointment at the dentist, or wherever you got to go. You're setting an appointment to show up. You're setting an appointment to show up. So here, once again, God said, let the lights be in the firmament of the heavens for the feast. Remember about the feast, the fulfillment of the law, or for divine appointments. So in Joel 2:31, it reads, the sun will be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes. Okay. Acts 2:20 states that the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and noble day of the Lord. Okay. Goes back to this blood moon. Okay. What is a blood moon? All right. Blood moon is when the moon turns red because how the sunlight is bouncing off the Earth's atmosphere. and shining onto the moon, so it appears red. Now, here's a significant thing. We've had blood moons throughout history, and before I even go there, let me correct something. That's earlier I said that there were 7 tetrad blood moons since the time of Christ, confirmed by NASA. Let me correct that. There was actually have been 7 tetrad blood moons that fell on feast days, significant feast days, since the time of Christ, because that's a very important thing. And that's been confirmed by NASA. So as I was saying, we've had blood moons throughout history, and we've had them in sets of 4, which are called tetrad. Tetrad blood moons, which means there are 4 blood moons. For example, you have 2 years. You have 2014, 2015, and then you have 2 blood moons in 2014, 2 blood moons in 2015. You never see 4 blood moons in a row that happen like that. And it's like very rare throughout time. Very, very, very rare. What's even more rare than just 4 blood moons in a row is when you have 4 blood moons in a row when they actually fall and line up with the feast days. It's almost impossible for that to happen. But throughout history, that has actually happened, where the 2 blood moons in each years that are back to back actually line up with feast days of Yahweh God. Now, what's so important about that is every time that has happened, there has been some type of significant event that happened in history. 100% of the time that has happened. The blood moons lined up with feast days. It was God saying, "Hey, I'm letting the lights be in the heavens for defined times or for my feast." God is signaling. Here, like I just read in Joel and in Acts, it says, "The sun shall be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the great interpreter of the Lord." Now, in between these blood moons, you have, say, for example, 2 in 2014, 2 in 2015. There's also a solar eclipse, which is when the sun goes dark. So you can imagine the writer back then looking up and seeing the sun not shining. Like, whoa, sun just went dark. All right, or in his vision when he saw it, he's saying, "Okay, I'm seeing the future, and I'm seeing the moon is red, and the sun is darkness." So he wrote, "The moon is blood, and the sun has gone dark, and then I seen the coming of the Lord." Why? Why did he see those things in the sun and the moon first? Because back in Genesis, remember, God said, "I'm the only one who can tell you the beginning, tell you the end from the beginning." When we go back into the beginning in Genesis, we see that he says, "Let the lights be for divine appointments or for feasts." So every time that we have these lights that were signs, when they turned to darkness for the sun and the moon into blood, when these things happened and they fell on the feast days, there were significant events. Like I just stated, there have been 7 times, it has been 7 times that this has happened since the time of Christ. I'm going to talk about 2 of those times. 2 of those times, there were 2 major events concerning Israel. Normally when this happens, there's some events somewhere happening in the world, and mostly these events kind of affect Israel. You might see war, you might see something going on with Israel. The last time it happened were 2 blood moons actually lined up. 4 blood moons, 2 in each year, actually lined up and fell on feast days. It was in 1967 and 1968. And what happened during this time was there was a 6-day war when Israel recaptured Jerusalem. Now, you can say, "Hey, well, what does that have to do with us? How is that so significant?" Well, as a Christian, as a student of Scripture, you will know how significant Jerusalem is and how much meaning it has to the nation of Israel. It is actually the centerpiece that we actually look to help us understand the last days, because everything centers around Israel, around Jerusalem. So in 1967, 1968, when there were 4 tetrad blood moons, 4 blood moons, there was a 6-day war, the recapturing of Israel, which was a major event in Scripture, major event. Also, in 1949 and 1950, this also happened. There was a tetrad blood moon, and what happened here, Israel, it says in 1949, excuse me, still fighting this go. During the first Israeli war for independence just after Israel had become a nation again for the first time in 2,000 years. It should be noted here that even though Israel declared themselves a nation in 1948, the first permanent government took office on January 25th, 1949. This is when there was a Tetrad blood moon. So why is this event so significant in history? Well, if we go back, it's in Isaiah. If we go back, there was a promise made by Yahweh God about Israel. He said they would disperse, and they would be scattered all over the world. They would be taken out of their lands. They're going to be taken out of their lands for a long time. But yet, in the last days, Yahweh said, I will bring them back together. And I will bring them back together, and they will become a nation again. What's so significant about that is that it's impossible. No one can be taken out of the land for 1,000 years or 2,000 years or however long, and then come back to that same land with nobody else settling there. Well, people settled there, but nobody else settling there and making it their permanent settlement and not willing to, give it up. And how does that happen? How does the language survive? How do the people survive? Because you got to think about it. They go into these different lands, scattered out all over the world. Jewish man marries a French woman. They have a half Jewish, half French kid. They have Jewish, half French kid marries a French woman or a French guy. And they have, you can see how the bloodline will slowly dissipate. But 1948, what happened? Oh, the important part of that prophecy was he said he's going to bring them back into their land and he's going to make them a nation again. But just to show you, although that's impossible, if that's not impossible enough within itself, just to show you that only God can do something like this. He said not only are they going to be out of their land for X amount of time, long periods of time, not only are their ethnic group going to survive, not only is their language going to survive, I'm going to bring them back to their land, and they're going to be a nation again in one day. Yeah, right. That's what most people would think. I ain't gonna lie, I'd be like, that's kind of impossible if I had any understanding. Oh, that's a little impossible. But we saw that happen, the fulfillment of that prophecy in 1948. 1948, May 14, 1948, the nation of Israel came back together and became a nation again in one day by the stroke of a pen involving U.S., the United Nations. In one day, Israel was a nation again. And this happened, major event in the world. This happened at the time when there was a Tetrad blood moon. So, like I said, there have been 7 Tetrad blood moons that have fallen on feast days since the time of Christ, and every last one of them, there were major world events. Major world events that changed. Now, the last 2, and the reason I chose to speak about the last 2 was because the last 2 Tetrad blood moons that happened, Israel became a nation again, then Israel regained Jerusalem. Well, the thing is, people preached for a long time, years and years before this happened, that we're living in the last days. Well, the problem with that was we could not go into the very last days until Israel was restored as a nation and until Jerusalem was back under the reign of Israel. So we couldn't really enter into those days until this happened. Now that this has happened, during the time of the Tetrad blood moons, we officially enter into the last days. So why is this so important? Why is this so significant? Well, even Mark he also says in Mark 13:24, but in those days the sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give its light, then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven. When does he come? He comes at the end of the last days, which we are now entering into. Israel has been restored. Jerusalem is back under their control. Now we're in the last days. Remember, divine appointments. We just saw two blood moons in 2014. We're seeing 2 more in 2015. And they're lining up with the what? With the feast days. Now, why is it significant? Why is it so significant? Because every time we see the blood moons, there are significant events in history. Significant events in history. And not only is there a blood moon coming up in September, which is a sign to the people or a divine appointment or for the feast, but not only is the blood moon for that, it's signaling to us, not only are we seeing the blood moon, there's also a Shemitah year in September. Not only is there a Shemitah year, which is a year of judgment and blessings, which would be judgment. Not only is there a Shemitah year, it's the year of Jubilee that's going on. Now, and the Jubilee is a super Shemitah year, the year of restoration, or a super year of judgment. So all of these things, for the first time, are happening at one time. So you're saying, well, how do you know this is the Feast of Trumpets? We've already gone over why Christ is going to return on the Feast of Trumpets. We've shown scriptural evidence and different type of evidences for that. So well, we know that there's a Feast of Trumpets every year. And I was saying I'm going to show you how or why I believe this Feast of Trumpets is the Feast of Trumpets he returns on. Why? Because everything is lining up to happen this year. The great economic collapse, which is nothing more than what we read in Revelation, Great Tribulation period, is lining up to happen in this very year. The Shemitah year is end of this very year. The year of Jubilee is the end of this very year. The year of the blood moons are in this year. And the Feast of Trumpets, when he shall return at the last trump, happens when? At the end of this very year. Now, think about this also. There have been how many blood moons since the time of Christ? 7. The Shemitah year is what? The 7th year. The year of Jubilee is the cycle of 7 times 7. And that one is the 50th year. So all of these things, remember that I was trying to show you how important the number 7 was and how it points to the coming of Christ. Remember also the feast days are in 7s, and he fulfilled those days to the very hour. He fulfilled those laws of the feast to the very hour. So everything's pointing towards this Shemitah year. This Shemitah year, or this Feast of Trumpets. The blood moons are very, very, very significant. And as we read the scripture where it says, before he comes, before that day, we shall see the moon turn to blood. We shall see the sun go dark. And we've seen that. We've seen the Tetrad blood moons. Not only Tetrad blood moons, but like the most rare thing ever when they line up on feast days. So remember that example I gave you. Oh, it's just a coincidence. Okay, if I give you the winning lotto number, you don't play it, and you'd be like, okay, well, maybe I should listen to the guy. If I come again and give you the winning lotto number, you're going to give me the benefit of the doubt, I'm pretty sure. Okay, like I said, throughout history, things have happened over and over and over and over and over again, repeatedly. But not only are they happening over and over and over and over again through scripture and through history, they're happening by 7s, or sets of 7s, or patterns of 7s. And he's telling you something. And this is the 7th. We've seen 7 sets of blood moons, Tetrad blood moons, that fell on feast days since the time of Christ. So there's a sign. There's signaling. There's someone trying to tell us something if we will only listen, because there's a divine appointment. Remember, God said, let the lights in the firmament in heaven be for signs, but for a divine appointment. Therefore, signs and divine appointments. So there you got blood moons. There's a sign. God is showing us. Okay, when we see that sign, we know that we have an appointment with the Almighty. So one more time, 7 blood moons, Tetrad blood moons since the time of Christ that fell on feast days, and every time, 100% of the time when this happened, 100% of the time when this happened, there were significant world-changing events. Now, if he's the same today, tomorrow, ever, why would it be any different this time? Scripture has it lined up. We might not understand it all the time, but it lines up. Blood moons are pointing to the end.
Hey guys, it's CA Bird again, and I want to thank you for watching the video, and I hope that you learned something tonight. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and to also subscribe to this YouTube channel. We thank you and we appreciate you. You can find further information on everything that we do on our blog, lastdayphenomenons.info. Thanks.